almost everything I have to say about this movie is positive. Whatever Nintendo did to Illumination to make them pump out such a fun movie, they need to do it again and again because I couldn't get enough of it and I want sequels. While I can't go too in depth about why I enjoyed this movie without spoiling all the best stuff, I can say that almost everything was handled perfectly. If I was gonna make a Mario movie, it would have turned out almost exactly to what we got. Now, to address the elephant in the room, the critics are wrong. One of the best decisions you can make as a moviegoer is almost always ignore the film critics' opinions, especially on Rotten Tomatoes, because those people just don't know how to have fun. Like everyone else, when the cast was first announced, I thought they were laughably bad and honestly ridiculous, but hearing them throughout the film, each one of them were perfect for the role. I especially thought I was gonna hate Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong, but he handled the role surprisingly well. When Peach was first introduced, I was really iffy about it because she just felt stiff and a little awkward, but no, once I got used to it, I think for this variation of Peach, she was fitting. The voice of Cranky Kong was also just not a good fit. He didn't sound old at all, so the voice coming out of this ancient monkey sounding young was just distracting. I do gotta say though, Jack Black, Chris Pratt, and Charlie Day stole the show with their performances. I'm so glad they got casted for these characters. Those who were worried Pratt was phoning it in for a quick cash-in can rest assured he did a great job. Now I do think hiring actual voice actors would have been better, but for what we got, it was great. Now the animation was simply spectacular. I didn't want to take my eyes off the screen at all. I was trying to absorb everything. I didn't want to blink in fear of missing something. I had no clue Illumination had this in them. If you showed this movie to me without saying who it was made, I never would have guessed in a million years Illumination of all studios were the ones to craft something so eye-pleasing. Realistically, I can't say a single negative thing about the animation, and I'm usually one to be really hard to please, so I'm impressed to say the least. The choreography in each of the fight scenes go way harder than you'd expect from a piece of Mario media. There's just so many dynamic camera angles and fast-paced combat, it feels like anime-ish, but with that American cartoony stretch style. One thing I was worried about going into it was just going to be one of those films that there's reference after reference at you, and that would be the entire meat of the film, which would be bare bones at best. But no, the way fandom is handled here is of masterclass. While subtlety clearly wasn't their goal, every nod to the franchise felt like a reward you earned for being a fan, and to those who weren't, wouldn't think anything about it other than, oh, that's probably from the video game, so it didn't feel intrusive. Man, oh man, the music score was not anything if not perfection. The way each song was crafted to fit in line to the movie basically ripped from the games, but with orchestral instruments used to up the intensity. Every piece of music you hear is just nauseatingly great. I won't say anything because of spoilers, but Donkey Kong and Bowser's music are a real treat. Stay till the end and I'll discuss spoilers later. The humor might be divisive between people, but personally I found it quite funny, which was a shock because I tend to find the most Illumination movies to be pretty stupid with a few exceptions like the first Despicable Me. I'm sure there was a Mario fan bias hidden in that laughter, and I might not have laughed as often if it wasn't Mario, but either way, I was chuckling throughout the whole thing. A good mix of clever jokes and dumb slapstick blended well. I think more than just the average family demographic can enjoy the humor here. Okay, so I can't just gush about everything positive this movie had to offer. Even though there was a whole lot there were a few negatives that should be mentioned, even if they are kinda minor. This movie goes at breakneck speeds. You almost have no time to be engrossed in any location or characters because one thing after another happened. I'm pretty disappointed by that, honestly. A movie would have been the perfect chance to flesh out the Mushroom Kingdom's characters a bit more than what we're used to. I'm not saying I need crazy in-depth character analysis or anything like that, I just would have liked to have slowed down a little bit more, so Mario and friends could have interacted with each other in a more casual manner besides just hopping from one objective to the next. Like, fans will know these characters more so it won't feel too necessary to us, but to the casual moviegoer it feels like you get the bare bone parts of their personality and that's it. Though they may have had little interaction with each other past the surface level, when the story let them dig a little deeper, it was really cute. Mario and Peach flirting and Luigi remembering how Mario protects him no matter what were real highlights to me. Speaking of Luigi, they did my man so dirty. For a movie called The Super Mario Bros., there was not a whole lot of brotherly interaction. Basically, as soon as the brothers end up in the Mushroom Kingdom, Luigi is gone for like 80% of the film. He gets kidnapped and is just sidelined up until the ending. This was more of a Mario and Peach movie than anything. But besides those complaints, this is probably the best video game adaptation to film we have ever gotten, and I can't wait for the next movie, because we all know there's going to be a next, and that's where the spoilers come in. Spoiler warning ahead, if you haven't seen the movie yet, pause the video and come back after, because I'm about to talk about things that'll completely ruin all the surprises this film has. We all know this movie would make a heaping pile of dough. It's the Mario movie after all, whether it was good or bad, it was gonna make bank. Thankfully though, it was good, and that means the sequel can only get better. That's not true, but we're gonna pretend it is. There were 2 end credits, so make sure you stick around for both. The first one was just a gag, so I won't explain that to y'all. But the second end credit scene was teasing the sequel. Seeing the aftermath of the sewers, you see the little green Yoshi egg crack open a little, and as the screen turns to black, Yoshi says his little iconic Yoshi line. Yoshi! I was actually surprised by that. I really thought we were going to see Rosalina, since Peach mentioned earlier in the movie how there's a huge universe out there with lots of galaxies. That seemed like a pretty big indicator that, Mario Galaxy was going to be the next idea for the film. I want to go deeper into that, but let's step away from the end for a minute and talk about some of the other aspects of the movie I wanted to put in the spoiler section. Mario and Luigi's family was an unexpected surprise. They dived a little deeper into this movie with. There's more to the brothers' family dynamic besides each other. I wanted to see more come from that, but it was kind of grazed over, like everything else in this movie. Everything exists solely to push the narrative forward, rather than expand on the characters' personalities. While this is the spoiler section of the review, I still don't want to say too much about all the references in the movie, but I do want to say keep an eye out specifically during the Brooklyn scenes, because there's just so much to take in. If you're a Nintendo fan, you'll see something you recognize. For example, 2 of my favorites were the Duck Hunt poster and Mario playing Kid Icarus on the NES. It was just wild seeing Nintendo acknowledge the Kid Icarus franchise outside of Smash Bros, especially in something as big as their first animated feature film. The Easter eggs were a ton of fun to spot too. Thankfully, the movie wasn't painfully relying on them. Something I noticed with the ending was the similarities of the final battle between Mario, Luigi, and Bowser to the final battle between Sonic and Eggman in his first movie. It took place on a street, all the characters were gathered around the action, and it ended with the heroes charging at a villain, knocking them back, then having the whole city cheer for them afterwards. I doubted it was intentional, I just thought it was kind of a funny similarity. I got some predictions for what the sequel of the movie could be. There's a lot they could do with, but I'm just going to go over some general main ideas I had for what could take part in the next movie. I don't have too many ideas on what could come from a sequel, ignoring what the cast has said about wanting a Luigi's Mansion movie and the Donkey Kong movie in the works. I feel like Mario Galaxy is going to have a big influence on the next story. Like I said, Peach mentioning the galaxies and the Lumas already being a part of the movie world seems to do everything to set up a Mario Galaxy plotline. I'm sure it'll take lots of creative liberties, but it would be really cool to see what they'll do with Rosalina's backstory. I don't think they'll just touch on her backstory either, because they likely touch on how Peach came to the Mushroom Kingdom too, or it felt open-ended to where they'll want to expand on that further. Now this is more of speculation, but the way the Mushroom Kingdom got sucked into the real world makes me think we're not done seeing Brooklyn or the brothers' family. The Mario Bros stayed in the Mushroom Kingdom, but that doesn't mean the real world is no longer available to them, so it could be interesting to see how their family is used in the sequel. I'm sort of half and half on the idea, because I'd like to see more of their family interacting, but I also feel it could really harm the movie and make it feel cheesy and not very much like Mario. I'm not sure if that makes sense though. Besides Yoshi and Rosalina, I'm not sure what other characters they'll want to introduce. I'd love to see Wario and Waluigi come in to give them the spotlight instead of reusing Bowser for the villain, or at least have them come from the real world, and when Bowser somehow escapes, he has them become his minions. There could be some sort of absurd plot where Wario and Waluigi are starting a plumbing business at the same time as Mario and Luigi from the first movie, but they get overshadowed because the bros saved Brooklyn, and now they want revenge because their business failed. That's probably a long shot, but I think something like that could be fun to see, and just a good excuse to use Wario and Waluigi. If Waluigi can be added in, I don't see why they wouldn't want to add Daisy in too, just so Luigi can have his love interest as well, and maybe they could have some kind of love triangle between Daisy, Waluigi, and Luigi, but obviously Daisy doesn't have any feelings towards Waluigi, but it'd be kind of a funny dynamic, kind of how Bowser and Peach, Bowser's clearly simping for Peach, and Peach is not feeling the same way, but it's still, it could be, there could be some funny dynamic there. If Illumination and Nintendo can just make a sequel as good as the first movie, then I'll be happy. But if they do address the small problems I mentioned, they could have a perfect game to movie adaptation on their hands easily. Hey, if you're still here, that means you made it to the end of the video. Thanks for watching all the way through. That's what some might say is pretty poggers. Since you're still here, why don't you drop a like and subscribe so you don't miss out on future high quality content.